Okay, I'll call a meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, to our June 2nd council meeting. There's an amendment proposed to the agenda. John and Julie Neisman are here, and they would like to come as a deputation regarding an event that they will be having later. So that would be our third deputation. Any objections to that amendment? Okay. I just need that as part of the motion to confirm the agenda as amended.
There's also, if you want to do it in one, there's also the bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that one. So yeah, the second amendment is we need a bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk, and that will be added to the agenda under items for consideration. Okay, so Doug, that includes your amendment. And Sherry, any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? None declared. So we have a couple of statutory public meetings before we get into the other parts of the agenda. The first one is file number Z0N 2025-001. Or is that the first one? No, that's the second one. I'll get it together. Just give me time. Is file number Z0N 2025-0002, 2017 Centreville Road. Pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act, as amended, notice is provided that an application to amend the zoning bylaw has been received by the Township and will be considered at this public meeting. The zoning bylaw amendment will apply to the property addressed as 2017 Centreville Road. Any person may attend this public meeting and speak to this application. The purpose of the application is to satisfy a condition of the provisionally approved consent application, already mentioned, to rezone the proposed severed parcel from a rural RU zone to a site-specific open space OS, not yet numbered zone, to ensure consistency with the overall development plan and rezone the proposed retained parcel from rural RU and Hamlet residential HR to a site-specific Hamlet residential zone to recognize the location of the lands within the Hamlet of Centreville boundary and provide for continued agricultural use of the lands. The effect of this application is to sever an approximately 41.9 hectare parcel from the subject property. Council can hear comments from the applicant or their solicitor or agent or any person who claims to be affected by this application. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this application? No. Hi, Alan. So, Mr. Sands, did you want to introduce this application and its intent in any detail?
Thank you, Reeve, and through you, I'm joined here by Mr. Good, as well as Mr. Stab is on attending virtually from the NCC, Nature Conservancy of Canada, who is working with Mr. Good in navigating this approvals process. Not that I want to take away the opportunity for those two folks to explain what we're doing through this application, but I do want to provide council, with just a brief introduction in the fact that Committee of Adjustment has already seen this application for the purposes of land division, and they've rendered a decision to approve provisionally, and we're here before you as council to navigate the zoning bylaw amendment process in rezoning the severed and the retained parcels to ensure that they comply with the intent of our official plan and the county's official plan. All that being said, I think Mr. Stab and Mr. Good can provide you a better explanation as to the intent of it in terms of the severed parcel and the retained parcel, and in terms of the conveyance of the land itself.
Do you want to lead, Mark, or would you like me to lead?
Just to make sure you can hear me, but yeah,
I should lead since I'm a little closer.
Yeah,
and you can provide comments. As you're all aware, I'm the owner of the farm across the way and a block of land south of Centreville Road. This was purchased by my father and my mother around 1979, I believe. And subsequently, when my mother passed away, I acquired it from the estate. And so it is the Good Farm. And in reflecting on where I think we are going as a society and the wishes of both myself and my parents, I thought I don't want to see this block of land chopped up and turned into 1 acre or 10-acre lots that are not properly utilized. And so I reached out to the Nature Conservancy and asked them whether or not they would consider setting this land aside. It does have some alvar habitat, which they were interested in. And so over what has been a bit of a lengthy process, Mark, but an enjoyable one, we've gotten to the stage where I believe this is the last step of the approval, but it is required that we come before council and request that you incorporate this modification as a result of what both the township and the province, I guess, require. Maybe Jason could comment on the legal requirements from the different organizations, the municipality and the province.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Just, and again, for council's clarification, the map is now on the screen to show essentially the 2 different parts of land that we're talking about, the retained parcel being the southern portion in purple, and the turquoise portion being the severed parcel in the north end. From a legality point of view, if you will, that boundary between the 2 parcels attempts to follow the hamlet boundary of Centreville, although it does navigate the stream or a creek, and we wanted to ensure that that natural feature was entirely located on the severed parcel, so that's the reason that the line's a little bit south. And rezoning the lands to the north when conveying or transferring lands to the NCC, we're proposing to rezone that to an open space zone, and the open space zone essentially protects it in the sense of prohibiting future development and ensuring that that the land is naturalized and maintained in that natural state. The southern portion, obviously where Mr. Good farms and lives, is not to be incorporated in that same type of zoning because we want that to be recognized in the fact that it's located in the hamlet, in the village boundaries, and that the uses for residential and agricultural uses can continue to exist in perpetuity as opposed to being put into this open space zone. So that's really aligned with the 2024 provincial policy statement, the County of Lennox and Addington's official plan, as well as the township's official plan. And that's really the intent of this zoning bylaw amendment. There is no change on the ground in terms of development or in terms of use, other than the fact of limiting uses on that severed parcel for what Mr. Stab and his organization are proposing to take ownership and control of. The only thing I forgot to mention, Reeve, I apologize, is we're here to gather public input, of course, during this public meeting. There's no recommendation incorporated on the regular session or regular agenda. We did receive public comment at the time the application was heard by the Committee of Adjustment. There was clarification sought from one neighbor as it relates to the future use of the severed parcel, and that was clarified by Mr. Stab and the intent of the NCC with respect to what they're envisioning for the site in maintaining it, naturalized state, et cetera. And it wouldn't be open. I believe the discussion at that time was limiting and prohibiting it from being opened as a public park, for example. It would not be of that sort. It would be much more of a secluded land holding for select individuals to use and view the natural state.
And if I could comment on that, it was always private land. People would have had to request going on it, and that will not change. The request will have to go now to the NCC.
I think that's really the overview from our perspective. I say from staff's, just based on the history of the file processing, as well as, of course, Mr. Stab and Mr. Good. I'm sure staff and or the applicants, Reeve, may answer any questions that council or any members of the community may have, but I assume we take away the information and we'll report back in the future with a bylaw for council's consideration at a future date.
Any comment from the public on this application? Any questions from council or comments? Councilor Lalande?
Thank you very much. And thanks, everyone, for coming. This is great to see people in our audience, in our chambers. I guess it's more of a question for Jason Sands. We all are aware of the provincial policy statement recommending that any rural residential development takes place adjacent to a hamlet. So by severing off this and giving it to the NCC, we're basically eliminating a stretch of land that theoretically or potentially could be developed into residential because it is adjacent to the hamlet. So I know there's Alvar in there, which could make it not suitable, and I think there was some mention of wetlands, possibly in some corner. But can you speak to that? How do you feel as a planner, knowing that this fairly large chunk of land is not going to ever be developed?
Through you, Reeve Wise. It's a great question. It's something that I think Mr. Good will acknowledge that him and I, or Mr. Stab actually, sorry, Mr. Stab and I had conversation on a year or so ago when we initially talked about this proposal coming forward and really trying to find that balance of how much land and where that line is to be divided or shown from severed versus retained to balance out what future residential uses may exist in Centreville or the hamlet of, as well as the rural area. And as much as the provincial policy statement speaks to developing lands in the rural area for limited residential uses, it tries to drive all the development in the rural area to the villages themselves or the hamlets themselves. And obviously close proximity to gives you credence for still supporting commercial uses or walkability or social aspects. But it really comes down to balancing what's in the current boundary versus what's beyond. There is a challenge in the sense that there hasn't been a full assessment of the lands completed to understand its viability for future residential uses. So as you note, there's some alvar on the site, there's a water course on the site, there are barns in the area that would restrict development from an MDS, minimum distance separation setback point of view. There's county road, obviously entrance permitting, et cetera. So there's a bunch of aspects of it that haven't been reviewed in any level of detail to support greater level of density on that site. So it's hard for me to speak to the details of it as opposed to the higher level aspects. And all I can say from higher level aspects is, as a planner, I feel confident in utilizing our existing urban settlement, rural settlement area's boundary to be the dividing line between the severed and the retained as being an appropriate measure of balancing where I think Centreville can still experience growth to the north in the future, should it choose or should development choose to go that route, while not impacting or foreseeing the near future of needing that additional lands outside of that settlement area boundary. Hopefully that answers the question, even though it's a little long-winded.
Thank you. Anyone else? So just for clarification then, Jason, so Centreville's hamlet boundary actually is contiguous with the proposed severance line, is that correct, or approximately correct?
That's a great question, Reeve. It's not exactly correct because we're trying to utilize the water course that cuts across that property as being more of the natural boundary as opposed to the artificial settlement area boundary, if you will. But it's in close proximity, yes.
Thank you. Anything else?
Excuse me,
Yes.
may I raise my hand?
Councilor
I apologize.
Sorry, Mark. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't find the raise my hand function on my computer, so thanks very much. Sorry to interrupt, and thanks for having me as part of the meeting. A couple things I'd just like to add, just to clarify and to elaborate a little bit. The purpose of the overall project is the severance, but to facilitate the gift of land through the Ecological Gifts Program. That's notable. It's a very generous gesture and it helps add to the portfolio of alvar and karst-related habitats we help protect with support from Stone Mills in Canada East, New Blueberg area of Vardy Lakes as well. So it's a really important piece of the puzzle. One thing I want to make sure is noted is that the open space zoning is a requirement of the severance, but an aspect of that is to enable agriculture to be continued for a period of time on that property. And I wasn't sure that open space allowed for that, but my understanding is that would be a special provision to enable agriculture to continue for a period of time on the severed land, the conserved land, to enable the transition of the farming over time to natural habitat.
Thank you. I guess I have a personal interest. I don't think it's a pecuniary interest, but I have an interest. I've actually worked that farm for 40 years, and my son is now working it. When you say a period of time, we still don't really have clarification on exactly what that means. And for planning purposes for the farm, I'm wondering if you could elaborate on what is meant to the NCC by a period of time.
Yeah, so I don't have it in front of me, but we do have a agreement with Mr. Good to enable farming to continue for a period of 5 years, I believe. And our intent in all of our properties is to increase biodiversity, maintain habitat, contribute to climate amelioration, et cetera, through habitat restoration. That's our primary goal. And the ultimate goal would be to have the property become all natural habitat. We want to, ensure that there's a recognition of those existing uses and a transition that is not immediate, but that is the ultimate goal of the property, is to convert it to natural habitat over time, giving the climate benefits and actually benefits to the community, being right next door to the hamlet as well. So I do recall that it's 5 years, but Alan, can you confirm that? I can dig that up on the computer here, but I'd have to go off screen.
I will confirm that, Mark, and make one or two brief comments. Excuse me. So the period of time that we set aside was 5 years. I believe that should the person who's currently using the land want to renegotiate something with the NCC, that they would be open to discussions, but 5 years seemed reasonable at the time. I don't really know where the boundary runs for the hamlet, but certainly that big block of pink land that you're looking at on the map, if it were to be developed, would either require the township to expropriate it for me or me to develop it. Of course, I won't be here forever, but I can guarantee you it will be not developed under my guidance. And the final thing is a philosophical thing. I spend a lot of time thinking about issues around water and things like that and land development. And I always point out to people, once you put something in place, it's very hard to reverse. At any point in time, this land could be developed if the NCC disappeared or I disappeared and the planet changed. But once you develop it, you're not going back. So from my perspective, that is not a pathway I would like to see Township Council to go down. It's not a pathway I want to go down.
Yes, Jason.
Thank you, Reeve. The only thing I'd like to add from a planning perspective or clarification point of view from our end is that the open space site-specific zone that's proposed for the NCC portion of lands has no time frame associated with when agricultural uses may continue and may cease. The proposal would be to recognize the agricultural uses as a permitted use and for them to allow to proceed in perpetuity, notwithstanding any agreement that may exist between private property owners, but the township would not be intervening itself in that from a land use regulatory perspective.
Thank you. Anything else? It's also worth pointing out that the Lear study will probably be evaluating those lands, as I think parts of that farm are definitely at least class 2, if not class 1, and certainly it's all at least class 3. So it could result in it being zoned as prime ag and not being developed in any case, so it would be protected as a prime ag zone. But that remains to be seen as that study is ongoing. So if there's nothing else, I'll just ask for a motion to receive. We'll be dealing with this in the regular meeting. Councillor Milligan, Councillor Land, all in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Jason. Thank you. And Jason,
Thank
don't
you.
go anywhere. Our next item, 4.2, is a notice of application, file number Z0N 2025 0001, 2875 County Road 14. As I read before, pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act and so on. This is a public meeting to entertain comment, to apply for a zoning bylaw amendment to the above-mentioned property. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application is to satisfy a condition of the provisionally approved consent applications as noted, to rezone the provisionally approved severed and retained parcels to ensure consistency with the policies of the township official plan. The proposed severed parcel D is to be rezoned from rural RU to site-specific hamlet residential HR to recognize the existing residential use and reduce lot frontage on County Road 14. Proposed severed parcels A, B, and C are to be rezoned from rural to hamlet residential to permit the proposed 0.5 hectare lot area and 45-meter road frontage on School Road. The proposed retained parcel is to be rezoned from rural RU to site-specific hamlet residential to ensure consistency with the policies of the official plan, given the lands are entirely located within the hamlet of Enterprise. The effect of this zoning bylaw amendment application is to facilitate the land division of the subject property into 5 separately conveyable parcels. The consent applications received provisional approval via the Committee of Adjustment at the December 11th, 2024 meeting. So council will hear comments from the applicant or their solicitor or agent or any person who claims to be affected by this application. Jason, did you want to add anything to that little preliminary technical explanation before I ask for questions and comments?
Yes, thank you, Reeve. I'd like to add that some of you may recall this application and wonder why it's on your agenda again for the purposes of a public meeting. I don't have the date in front of me, I apologize, in which it was presented to you as a public meeting, a statutory public meeting. The reason we're here again tonight for a public meeting is there was a grammatical error in that notice that went out for the previous, in that it said that the address was County Road 4 as opposed to County Road 14. So there was a 1 missing on that. And we didn't want any ambiguity with notices or any errors out there with respect to somebody not knowing that which property we are identifying as being the select property. So for that reason, we're here again this evening for a statutory public meeting. Notices that went out again in accordance with the Planning Act, mail out, circulation, et cetera, signage on site. So that's why we're here. We have heard public comments to date. I believe we are or will hear additional public comments. And I'm happy to answer any questions through the public meeting portion. However, you will see on the regular session agenda, there's a bylaw, there's a recommendation, and a staff report. We've gone so far to do that because we feel we have held a public meeting and garnered significant public input, although we missed a grammatical error, so that's why we're back for a public meeting.
Thank you, Jason. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this proposal? Yeah, sure, come on up. Yeah. Yeah, just give us your name and
My name's Al Detler.
sorry?
Al Detler?
Yes, Al Detler. Okay, Al, what's...
Yeah, anyways. You get a touch?
Yeah, no, you just so they can hear you on the screen. That's all.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just curious, the last time I was here, I spewed out a bunch of stuff there that I consulted a lawyer at that time, and he was, did title searches and all this stuff, and he was telling me what I should do and what I shouldn't do, but then I came to see how things are going, or if there's anything going on, and nobody seems to be paying much attention to me. So I just wanted to come back and see what was going on, sort of thing.
So would you mind summarizing your concerns? I remember you being here
Oh,
before. I don't remember the details.
My title of my deed states that I own lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 in complete whole parts. You can see that. Oh, there it is. And it goes right out onto the right of way going up to the farm. But for some reason, like if you look at all the titles before me when I bought the property, it always said that I owned, everybody else owned 167, but when I bought the place, it said that I still own 167, but I had to survey that right-of-way off because it was a right-of-way for the farm. But I didn't give it away, and then it says totally on my deeds and stuff that I still have control and like I can still use it, like I can use the right-of-way, but apparently Jason was saying that it should have been marked back then as a right-of-way, and it wasn't, but I didn't, like I had a lawyer doing all this stuff, so I didn't know that, but, and then when they want to sever this property off by just using that driveway, that, like the right-of-way is only 34 foot 9 inches, and it's not wide enough, and I said I could give them more if I could still use it, but nobody seems to want to pay any attention to me.
So Jason, what's your...
Okay, another question, sorry.
Yeah.
And my lawyer said that it's supposed to be a 66 foot right-of-way. That's what he understood.
Okay. Jason, what's your analysis of this situation? I remember Al being here before, and I assumed that something would get worked out here.
Yeah, thanks, Reeve. I might just go to the screen. I don't know if I can take this with me, I suppose, and talk through it. I had a good conversation with one of our counselors the other day respecting this, and I think pointing out to this reference plan that I'd circulated around last week is going to be the best to provide that explanation. So I think what Al is mentioning is, of course, block 1, 2, 3, 4 is his parcel on 14. It's known municipally as 14 Amos Street. He's got his own, basically his road comes in and gets access to his house sitting here. You can see that this lot configuration extends over onto this, which is Al's referring to a right-of-way and commonly known as a driveway for access into the farm, the subject property. What is important to note is this original plan, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all these, Amos Street, comes from Plan 90. And Plan 90 is an 1800s plan for the town of Enterprise. It's the original town plan that laid out the town of Enterprise. And you can see this survey that we're looking at here. James can scroll up there later, but it's confirming that pin, these are steel iron bars, half-inch steel iron bars. You can, that's what this denotes. And it confirms that there's 10.665 meters of road frontage for this property that we're talking about tonight or proposing to rezone. So these have been surveyed, and this reference plan was completed in 2020 by Tom McDonald or Hopkins Chitty land surveyors. And essentially what they've confirmed to me, the surveyors, and then we pushed this to our township solicitor and got their opinion, is that the original town plan is essentially not as accurate as a 2020 survey completed by an Ontario land surveyor. So an Ontario land surveyor in 2020 set these bars and confirmed that this is the actual extent of the property, and the original town plan showed that this block is slightly off in terms of whatever that distance would be. That's essentially what I think the biggest confusion for Mr. Detler is, in the sense as to where that westernmost property line is on this, as it relates to this property. But as you can tell, the original town plan didn't come to fruition for everything. The original town plan showed that Mr. Detler would own 4 lots, Lot 1, Lot 2, Lot 3, and Lot 4. That's obviously not the case, right?
It says on my title, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what makes up a legal description that was created based on an old town plan. But in reality, that's one separately conveyable parcel today. Mr. Detler's not able to sell part 3 to me and part 4 to you. It's one lot. So the original town plan often sets the basis or the groundwork for a town and how it develops, but it's not essentially what prescribes it and what makes it legally conveyable in today's standard. So I think that's really what the biggest question is as it relates to the mapping here.
If you measured out, it measures right up to the driveway, it's 167 feet, and it goes back to 1942 or something like that, the measurements.
I don't want to get back and forth with Mr. Detler. The surveyor set the bins.
But the thing is, I use that driveway. I've always used it since I moved out in 1995, and I just wanted, since we're severing all this stuff off, why can't it be marked as a right, or an easement or something,
So I think just for the, through you, Reeve, sorry, just for the benefit of council, that's a conversation that we had at the Committee of Adjustment meeting. And I think it was a great conversation for the Committee of Adjustment in the sense that they're the consent granting authority for easement creation and lot creation. The Committee of Adjustment made decision on creating this lot, as well as giving consideration as to whether an easement should be instilled over that driveway to provide access to, for example, your rear yard. And that can most definitely be a request, but it has to be brought forward under a separate application to create an easement from one private property owner to the other. It's not something that you necessarily tack on to an application as it's navigating an approval process. It's one that you would bring forward. So if you and the private property owner that owns this property wish to propose an easement, the committee, as confirmed by the Committee of Adjustment at the meeting, they're more than happy to entertain that application should it come forward.
Yeah, but once you approve it though.
Councillor Fenwick, use your mic, please.
My apologies, I just see Jake's hand and he's intimately familiar with this maybe.
Thank you. Did you want to have a comment there, Jake?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that I'm just here looking at the, the parcel fabric, and this is the same information, it's MPAC, the stuff that's sent on a tax bill. And it just want to point out that it says Plan 90, Block L, Lot 1, and part of Lots 2 to 4, meaning that there's some, background that, in history that that he only owns part of Lots 2 to 4.
Which now make up one complete parcel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one complete parcel.
One lot, yeah. So I'm not privy to all the back and forth and details here. I'm getting an impression that what has to happen, Al, is you and whoever owns these properties have to come to an agreement to create an easement and then apply to the Committee of Adjustment for that easement. So I don't see anything that's preventing you from talking to the landowner and coming up with a mutually agreeable description of an easement and going to Committee of Adjustment. I'm sorry if you thought it was, the onus was on the township to. Yeah, I know, yeah, and I wouldn't know either, yeah. So, Rob, did you have a comment, Councillor Fenwick?
Yeah, I do actually. I had an opportunity to visit with Al and we went over a lot of detail here and it brought up some questions myself, which I contacted Jason and got some, it was really good. It was very, very knowledgeable. So Al, one of the things we spoke of was the dotted line through the middle. Yeah. And you can see that on there. It is somewhat confusing, especially someone that doesn't understand this sort of stuff. Yeah, the dotted line through the driveway. I'm familiar with this area. I've driven that driveway a lot of times. I know the area. And so I did reach out, and what that is, just for clarification, that is the old 1800 survey that was done with like chains and horses. It was accurate enough at the time. When you purchased the plate, 1995, I believe, was the date. That's when your survey, that's when that was basically corrected. They showed the dotted line just to show you where the old line used to be. That is why it's dotted. So unfortunately, what seems to be the case is that for the past however many years, it's been almost like a handshake agreement that no one knew really didn't apply until now you have a new neighbor who says, wow, if I want to sell this piece of land, I'm in a bit of a pickle because I'm going to have to put this on there. But you know what? I don't have to give anything to anybody. I own it all. That's the hang up. I agree, and I didn't understand either until I spoke with Jason, and then I went, aha, now I get it. So the current survey, just because it's so much more modern and accurate, overrides the old one. That's where the dotted line comes from. So I understand your confusion. So as John and Jason are saying, at this point, the application is legit. Your best bet is to speak to the owner and see if you can come to some sort of agreement. And if you can come to an agreement, come back with your own application for the next step, but that's up to you to negotiate with the owner. It's just really unfortunate that all these years you thought that existed and everybody did, and the survey shows differently. I know you have. I've watched you do it. So that's where, just for some enlightenment, it's unfortunate, it's unfair, but it's just reality.
No, like, I don't want it, I just wanna be able to get up to the back of the property, that's all I ever use it.
That's right. And I totally get it. I think everybody in the room does, but I just wanted to clarify that. We had a good conversation and it was very enlightening. So
Well,
you're,
this is what I've been trying to get, I just keep getting.
and that's why I spoke with Jason on your behalf and had a conversation and was enlightened, and that's why I'm sharing that with you now. So we can speak after as well.
Okay, so that's my understanding then, that you can talk to the current landowner, and certainly Rob Fenwick's available to help. And any advice you need, you can come to the planning department and work out the details to apply to the Committee of Adjustment, Al. Okay? Okay, thanks, Al. Any other comment or question from, yes?
Does that mean there's a reduction in property tax? Is paying tax and all that, and now it's less, or?
Well, that's certainly a good question. I certainly can't tell you. Yeah.
He mentioned that it's been showing on the NCAP, so I was just wondering.
Just come to the office and make that determination. I don't think that's something we can determine here this evening. And gentleman in the corner at the back there, would you like to make a comment?
I own 134 School Road.
Okay.
And
Yeah, come on up to the mic and just state your name again, sorry.
it's Andrew William Harrington, and I own 134 School Road.
Okay, Andrew, go ahead.
Unfortunately, the original, I didn't get it was during the strike, I know, but I didn't get the original invite for the original zoning. And I'm just here now, I'm just a little worried. There's a few things. First off is water. They did come to me and say they were doing a study in April. We all know, like, a water study in April means nothing. Doesn't matter, it's this area, very hit or miss whether it's gonna be a dry area or not, how much water you have available. So that was one of my fears, is with the 3 wells he's already got drilled right alongside of me, that's whether I'm gonna run into water issues or not. And the other issue was just for future, like the future zoning or whatever they call for behind me, the devaluation of my property. People don't move to the country. Like, I bought the house because I didn't have any neighbors. That's why I bought this house. So if they're gonna be, eventually, it's looking like he's gonna be building houses in behind me. And it's just it's gonna take the value of my house down, and it's not what I moved to the country for to begin with. So that's kind of one of my fears on it right now.
So, Jason, as far as the water supply goes, does that affect this zoning change decision, or is that something that would affect the granting of severance for these lots if there's not sufficient water supply and so on?
Yeah, through you, Reeve, great question. So hydrogeological study was done. It was a condition imposed by the Committee of Adjustment. It was done in the spring. It has been peer reviewed, and it's on the agenda in your package this evening. The peer reviewer concluded that it was one that concluded sufficient water supply and quality and quantity. I understand that they do an assessment based on rainfall records and have a correction assessment to it, so that they're not just requiring everybody to do a study at the dry time of year, for example. In short, it's something that's considered by both council and Committee of Adjustment. Committee of Adjustment imposed the condition, so you can't finalize the lot creation until the hydro-G study is completed to the satisfaction of the peer reviewer. And council, in terms of approving a zoning change to a hamlet residential zone to a lesser lot area, so the 0.5 of a hectare is what I think council's all familiar with that, is what's being proposed here. And it's ultimately a consideration of council when proposing a lot area of that size. So short answer is both, Reeve.
And as far as Mr. Harrington's concerned about property value and his reason for moving to the country, is there any sort of policy requirement in our official plan to take into consideration such things when determining a severance?
Through you, not devaluing, so land use planning doesn't consider valuation of property or dollars in terms of making decisions on land use. If, you know, with respect to the extreme example of more incompatible land uses, for example, like a transfer yard or a salvage yard, placing that next to a house, there's a land use compatibility element to that, but the actual dollars that it might devalue the property, the house, is not a consideration under the Planning Act. The only other thing I mention is the retained parcel, and I think that's what Mr. Harrington's making reference to, is what might look like future development in terms of a subdivision, and I think that's what you're getting at in terms of more houses in behind your existing house. That is a valid concern, but through this application process, it's not being proposed. The zoning is actually being proposed to allow for agricultural uses to continue, very similar to the Mr. Good application and NCC application. A site-specific hamlet residential zone, because it's in the entirely within the hamlet boundary of enterprise. Typically, you don't have agricultural uses dominate your hamlets, but we want to recognize that's an existing use, and we want to recognize that it can continue into the future with no time frame. So that is something that has been incorporated in the site-specific zone for the retained parcel.
Thank you. Councillor Woodcock, comment?
Yeah, question for you, Mr. Sands. So this agricultural uses, I noticed on the application when it says existing uses, agricultural was not checked off. It had vacant and residential. I believe we added the agriculture because we wanted to track what are potential agricultural losses in development here. Should that box be checked as agricultural land that we're developing on if we're mentioning things like cropping and such of the land use? I would also disagree that we shouldn't have agriculture within hamlets, personally. I like the cows across the street in my house.
Through you, Reeve, the consent application, I started in 2019 in Stone Mills, and the consent application has not been changed since 2019. So there has not been any change to that box checking, if you will, of agricultural versus rural, versus residential, sorry. The reason being is we're going digital with CityWorks, and we're going to implement all that via digital platform. So that's why we're building that way as opposed to updating templates. Point noted. I don't know what else to say aside from point noted with respect to calling it agricultural or vacant land. A lot of applicants typically note vacant land if there's not a building on the property, whereas other applicants, even if it's being cropped for hay, alfalfa, corn, whatever, they're not calling that agricultural in the sense that there's not a barn with agricultural livestock on the property. And I think that's, the applicant's here this evening, the applicant can clarify why they checked that box, but that would be my guess in that sense. And just to further clarify, not that I have anything personally or professionally against agricultural uses in a hamlet boundary. I'm iterating that from above in the sense of the province to the county to the township's official plan. If you read the policies in those document sets, they're less directive of establishing agricultural uses, generally speaking, than your ICI uses, your industrial, institutional, and commercial uses, and residential uses in settlement areas. That's what I made that reference to. So apologies if it came across in any other way. That's all. I just want to make sure that's on the record.
Okay, follow-up?
Yes, one follow-up. Yeah, so I guess that was the form before. I know I had mentioned at a previous meeting, is that something we could add so that we could track when we have these applications about what is the rate of agricultural land that we are losing in a kind of easier way. So I do think that's something we should look closer at as we get these applications, whether or not they're agriculture, and make sure that box is checked, because I think it should accurately reflect as a historical document and how it's used. And the other thing, at the last meeting when this was on the agenda, you also mentioned, does this zoning change that livestock is no longer allowed on these lands? Was that a change as well? I'm just having a recollection. I just want to clarify.
Through you, Reeve. Thank you, Councillor Woodcock. The southernmost portion, and I don't have the lot numbers, there's a former livestock facility on the southernmost portion in the barn. Again, with the policy direction of being in the settlement area, there's incompatible land uses with MD at minimum distance separation with barns in villages. So that's where we're proposing to rezone, so no livestock in that barn, that existing barn, that would sit on approximately a 3-hectare site, I believe, but not necessarily on the whole of the property, not on the retained parcel that we've been directing this conversation to. That agricultural draft zoning is not prohibitive in that sense.
Okay, I'm sure you're not satisfied with what you're hearing, Mr. Harrington, but those are the comments. Council will be voting on this zoning amendment later in the meeting. I'm not sure what to suggest to you. As far as the pump test goes, I know when it's done in the spring, that's the high water time. There are ways for hydrogeologists to calculate, based on rainfall records, what the pump test would be extrapolated into the fall, and they're satisfied there will be good water supply regardless. So unless you have a strong objection and want to hire your own hydrogeologist, I'm afraid you're stuck with that evaluation.
I would just say, so directly behind and on the property behind me, the water, when they're doing this study, was sitting 2-3 feet high in the field. So this study is bogus, 100% bogus. It'll prove nothing, that study, that time of year. Because there is standing water, like a large amount, like flocks of geese coming into the back there. So of course, at that time, it's not going to prove anything.
Okay, that's a technical consideration that I don't have any expertise on. Jason, does Mr. Harrington have any recourse in terms of objecting to that hydro-G study at this stage and thereby holding up this zoning process?
Through you, Reeve, so the hydro-G study is publicly available. My first comment. The well records are publicly available as well. So all that's on I believe it's all on the agenda package tonight, but it's definitely all available for review. In terms of appeal, there's no longer an appeal process to the Ontario Land Tribunal from third-party appeals for zoning bylaw amendments. There only is an appeal process for prescribed public bodies. So if, for example, the conservation authorities took objection to an application, so potentially a community group, for example, I say that, I'd have to read the act specifics, but third-party appeals have been deleted as part of one of our recent bill changes, I believe Bill 23, by our provincial government.
There's your situation, Andrew. I'm sorry. Anything further? Councillor Fenwick, go ahead.
Have you yourself, how long have you been living at this address?
5 years.
Okay, 5 years. Have you experienced water problems in the past?
I haven't, but like I say, with 3 more houses going right beside me,
Sure.
and the fact that just the time of the study as well, and the fact that, like I say, literally you can go in there, watch the geese and ducks flying, and it's like a giant pond in there in the back. That's that time of year. So
Do you know how deep your well is or how old it is?
I believe it's only 40 feet deep.
It's a 40-foot well, and is it? I mean, I don't know if you have that information. How old it would be? Is it?
1975.
Oh, okay. Well, it's old like me. So, and it's 40 feet. You said?
Yeah.
And do you have a submersible or shallow well pump?
Shallow well.
Okay. Thank you, Raj.
Okay, I think that's all we can do for you at this point, Andrew. Thank you. Any other comment on this delegation? Yes, Councillor Fenwick.
Yeah, one quick thing, and has nothing to do with that particular issue there, but I just wanted to ask a question about the laneway again, and Jason can answer this, it'd be great to know. So, and it doesn't even pertain to just this, it's anything. The parcel D that's being severed, the width that's written down here, we've got 34 foot 9 inches, and I've always wondered, I know you have to have a certain amount of road frontage to do certain things and so on. And if it's 34 foot 9, and Mr. Deller made a comment about 60 feet being the minimum, can you clarify that and how that works when it's less than 60 feet and what you do need and why this is okay? I just was curious.
Through you, Reeve-wise, it's a great question, and it's one of the reasons we're here, the applicant's here before council this evening, because that frontage, 10.6 meters plus or minus, does not comply with the 45-meter road frontage requirement, 45-meter road frontage requirement of the HR zone. So currently, our township zoning bylaw for all properties in a village require 45 meters, so 150 feet. And that's one of the I don't want to call it a variance, but that's one of the sections of relief that the applicant is proposing through this process. So rezone the properties, as well as recognize that driveway that's provided access to that long-standing farmhouse on the property for decades and decades. And it goes to the question of, our zoning bylaw has different frontage requirements depending on where you are in the township, depending on the different uses that you're proposing. So for example, if you're in the rural area and you want agricultural uses, you're 100 meters of road frontage. You're in the rural area and you only have residential uses and not agricultural, you're 60 meters of frontage. And you're in a village and you have a residential use, you're 45 meters of frontage. So there's different areas, Councillor Fenwick, and different requirements depending on where you are. And all of those numbers are different depending on which jurisdiction you're in, depending on urban versus rural, city water versus non, depending on where you are on the property. There's no standard requirement anywhere. I've seen projects in urban centers that allow basically zero frontage. They actually don't have a frontage minimum because they have rear service lanes for access, for example. So they'll have a driveway or a service lane in their garage out the back, like laneway housing type examples in Toronto. So they don't drive their performance standards based on an area and a frontage like we typically do in the rural area if you're in an urban type setting. So great question. There are varied answers, and this is one of them in which this applicant is proposing to reduce through the application to recognize that driveway to the site for that existing farmhouse.
Anything further? In that case, yeah, sure, Alan, if there's something else you want to say, come on up, because we're all being recorded for posteriority.
Had to be 66 feet for emergency vehicles proper, that there's no minimum, that's what they had to have, or it couldn't be done. That's why he said, I don't understand why he wouldn't give you an easement onto your property and maybe make the driveway a wider, like I've seen the garbage trucks down in there on their sides, I've seen gas trucks like that road, like I plowed it myself, it's too damn narrow, you can't, it's crazy up through there. In the wintertime, summertime is not too bad, you can see what you're doing. Anyways, I just had to say that because.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways.
Jake Detler, did you want to have your
Yeah,
hand up?
I just wanted to mention that Amos Street in Al's own survey is only 40 feet wide. I mean, that's the reality. And we're driving on roads every day that the township technically doesn't own yet. Anyways, so to say that there's only roads that are at a minimum 66 feet wide is just not a reality.
Yeah, we'd have to stop using a lot of roads if we were being held to 66 feet. That's the ideal.
I know, but the right of way might be 35, but this road is only like 12 feet.
The usable portion. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I had as a guy that was stuck down there and tore it all up, and I said, you have to get fixed, because I thought I owned that stuff, I didn't own it.
Yeah. You had the use of it. Yeah. Yeah.
He wouldn't do it, and then we got in a disagreement about that, and he said, I didn't own it, and I said, well, geez, I don't, says, my title there, but I still own rights and all that to it.
Right.
We can ask him.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have to, Councillor Land, yes? Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah, did you want to come forward? Let us know who you are.
Hello, my name's Brad Harmson. I am the property owner there. So I just wanted to speak on the Hydro G study and the wells. As much as the study was done in April, the wells were installed, I believe, in January when the ground was frozen. And they produced an incredible amount of water, which was then confirmed by the Hydro G study. So the numbers were the same, whether there was water sitting in the fields or not. There was lots of water when they were drilled in the middle of winter. Yeah, 10 gallons a minute, and they're 80 feet deep, roughly, all three of them. So, the other thing, I know Jason had said about the 2020 survey, we've already had the property resurveyed, just about a month ago, and it also confirmed the frontage is there, and, we actually had the surveyor stake up the sides to show where the property lines are on the driveway that's there.
Okay, thanks for
thank you.
bringing that forward. So I hope some sort of easement can be worked out so Al can continue to access his property. I'm sure that between reasonable people that can be done. Is there any other comment on this? In that case, I'm going to ask for a motion to receive. Deputy Reeve Davison and Councillor Milligan, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Jason. I think at this point I should take the opportunity to mention something I forgot at the start, which is that CAO Jason White is joining us remotely. And I didn't know what would be a good time to mention the next thing, but I think after he's performed yeoman service for us here in the last almost an hour, I should mention that this is Jason Sand's last meeting. He is, as they say, seeking other opportunities and will no longer be our development services manager, deputy clerk. He's been a wonderful person to work with, and he's gone through some trying times. He's not only been our deputy clerk and manager of development services, he's also fulfilled the role of acting CAO for a great length of time after our previous CAO left his position. He's sailed some choppy seas with resolute determination, and not always happily, and I don't blame him. We've had some trying times, Jason, and none of that is your fault or anybody's fault. It's just the nature of how things go sometimes. So without turning this into a eulogy, I just want to say on behalf of council and staff, thank you for your service, Jason.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, man.
And with that, I will move on. Our next item is open forum. Did anyone sign up? So there's no open forum. So deputations. We have 3, and the first one is from Martha Embry regarding the Stoneleigh Steps Art Festival. Martha, you know the routine. Come on up, turn on the mic, and
I'm just waking up here. Okay, so less than 2 weeks away from Stoneleigh Steps Art Fest. And once again, I've come to you for some requests. And so that would be the insurance costs. You would cover my costs once again this year for $245.03. And picnic tables, 12 of them, and 4 garbage cans for the show.
short and sweet, Martha.
Yep.
I believe we did something similar last year. Is that not correct? I think that was the case. Any comments from Martha?
Any questions?
Any questions? I think we're dealing with this later in the agenda, Doug, so we'll just receive that and later on we'll actually deal with the request in items for consideration. So thank you, Martha.
You're welcome.
All right.
I hope you can make it out, everybody.
I hope the
It's
weather's
a great
good.
show. I hope so. The long range looks really good.
I hope so. Go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, I know that when the Art Amongst the Ruins, which was a fantastic, it was an incredible draw to the Newburgh area. My daughter in particular blossomed during that, and her photography without it, I don't know where she would have ended up. And I really want to thank you for picking
You're
up
welcome.
after that faded and dreaming up a new idea to bring people to our area, because it is absolutely fantastic. I haven't ever been out to it, so I'm going to, full disclosure, the schedule hasn't lined up, but I'm really hoping I can get out to this one. So again, thanks for all your efforts.
You're
It's very
welcome.
important. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Anyone else?
everyone.
Thanks, Martha.
You're welcome.
Okay, can I have a motion to receive Martha's delegation? Councillor Woodcock, Councillor Land, all in favor? That's carried. Thanks,
Thank you.
Martha. And our next deputation is Linda Burrell. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Linda. Is it Burrell or Burrell?
Burrell.
Burrell.
Thank you.
And this is a request for a municipal parking lot located at 4504 County Road. And Linda, can you just explain what it is you're asking us here?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come in tonight. I'm having an auction at our house. We just live up around the corner at 37 Victoria. And it's going to be on Saturday, June the 14th. And the reason, we've just sold our house because my husband has gone to long-term care. So I'm moving to be with him. And we're just asking if we can use the township parking lot for the people that are attending the auction, just to alleviate some of the traffic in the village and keep it safe for everyone. I've also approached the Fair Board of Directors to have parking down in the fairgrounds as well, and I haven't heard back from them as of yet.
Okay, and so this would be on a weekend then?
It's on a weekend, it's on Saturday.
Right, okay. Is there any problem from Public Works standpoint? I know Jeff isn't here this evening. Perhaps Jake, can you envision any difficulties with this request?
Through Reef Wise, yeah, I was made aware of this last week, and I had no, as long as it's moderate in size, in scope, and how many parking spots will be used, and I assume it is. I don't personally, or as a building official, have any problems with it.
Comment from council or question? Yes, Councillor Fenwick.
I'm sorry I keep miking in here, but just a lot of questions tonight. Now, are you planning on using just the primary parking lot here or the roads area? Do we gate that off on the weekends?
I think they do.
We don't, so it is open.
But
I'm just wondering if you're only planning on using this, maybe we could throw some pylons up so we don't have people wandering around in the roads, behind the roads area. There's equipment there and there's things, and maybe it's not
Right.
quite as secure, you know what I mean? That might be a good idea. I'm just suggesting that.
Anyone else? I would really like to get Jeff Thompson's input on this one. I wonder, CAO White, are you hearing us?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this request? Any possible difficulties?
Generally speaking, the parking lot would be considered a public parking space for normal operations for the administration office. I would agree, I guess, in taking just a bit of effort to redirect traffic if there's going to be an anticipated significant amount of vehicles away from the public works area, and that can be noted. But on a Saturday, the parking out front of the municipal offices is generally not used. So I think it's good to know that it's going to happen, and if there's no there's limited possibility that it's going to be overflowed, then we have no problem with it.
Thank you. At council's indulgence, could I just suggest, Linda, that it seems that there's no objection to using the immediate parking area for the office here, but there's some concern about access to the public works yard parking. Could you come in and talk to the roads department just to get some clarification, and perhaps council someone might want to make a motion to the effect that if there's a concern about access to the public works parking area, that Linda and Public Works have an understanding that will be restricted by, you mentioned pylons, Rob, or some other means. Does that seem reasonable, council? Councillor Leland, you're going to make that motion. Councillor Fenwick seconds that. So are you clear then, Linda?
yeah.
Okay.
And where do I come?
Just to the roads office next door here. Yeah, just during business hours. We'll have, Brandon, you can communicate that to Laura, that Linda will be coming in. Something that effect? What would you like from us?
Yeah, just so for clarification, so we'll get a motion from council to waive the parking bylaw because it does state that there's no parking in municipal parking lots after hours. So it would be a motion to waive Part 3, Section 10 of the parking bylaw to allow for parking at 4504 County Road 4, which is this address here. It's not the Public Works location. Council can include a stipulation that parking be permitted over there at the discretion of the Public Works manager, if that suffice for council.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so I've got that motion from Deputy Reeve Davison. Who was the seconder of that? Councillor Land? Oh. That's okay. Any way you want to do it. So I think you did too. The main thing is that we have a mover and seconder who are on council. I think we've got Doug and Wenda at this point. And Linda, if that will be conveyed to the Public Works Department, this motion, and Brandy has clarified we have to waive that bylaw to allow you to do this. So if you can head over there and talk to the building or the Public Works Department, just so they've got your contact information and so on. Is that acceptable to you?
Can I come in tomorrow and do that?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All right, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. 9:30, Saturday morning. Please come.
Thank you for inquiring, not just assuming and getting
Yeah.
buzz with all these meetings, what's going on. Thank you for.
And actually, I'm really surprised that my auctioneer didn't mention anything either. It was family and friends who said, you know, you maybe should just check with them and, you know, just even let them know that there's going to be traffic in the area.
Okay, thanks
Thank
very
you.
much, Linda. And finally, we have the added deputation from the Nisemans. Do you want to come up, John? And yeah, okay. You know the routine with the microphone there. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Reeve Wise and council. So I'm representing our little volunteer group, Stone Mills Community Charity Events. What I'm hoping to accomplish, I missed the deadline, so I apologize. I've got a crazy idea to hire Ambush, the band, and rent the Tamworth Arena for Friday, July the 18th. So I'm here for the large special event permit because it's over 250 guests. So I'm hoping to get approval for it. I'm not sure if there's another procedure for this. There's a checklist of everything that we have to have, and I've gone through it, and I do have everything other than there's an escape plan, I think, or an emergency plan that I have to do with the fire department later. So do I go through the checklist that I've done, or what should I be asking for currently?
So, Brandy, perhaps you could clarify for John what's required and how much time he has to get that in. I don't think we have to approve that tonight until we've got the actual application.
Yeah, through you, Reeve Weiss, thank you. So we've received an application for this special event permit. So then you're required to supply the supporting documents that go along with that. Once that's been received by staff, it gets circulated to management from an operational perspective. So emergency services, public works, building. If there is no comments, or if there are comments, it will come back to council for their consideration to approve or deny the special event permit. So once we receive all of the supporting documentation, staff will bring forward a report to council for their consideration.
So could that conceivably be brought to our next meeting in June?
Provided we get all of the supporting documents, then yes, it depends when those supporting documents come in. If we can get them submitted to staff by next end of week, then staff will prepare a report next week because the agenda gets published on June 12th of next week.
Right, so can you get those supporting
I've
documents
submitted
in?
everything. I submitted everything online on May the 25th.
Okay,
So alternatively, the alternative date would be July 7th. It could also
right.
come back to
It could be
council.
approved then as well. Okay,
Well, I have an issue because I already have insurance and everything in place, because I had to have an agreement with Ambush to start selling tickets. So I hope I'm not offending anybody by selling tickets without getting final approval from
well,
council.
that's on your recognizance. You're taking that risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Doug.
If all the documents are in, there's no reason why it wouldn't be approved.
Sorry, can I ask what we're lacking? Because I was under the impression I had everything submitted on the 25th.
Through you, Reeve Wise, so I just see on the back end, because we have an online submission.
Yes.
I don't see any attachments with it. I know you've provided a site plan in a separate email to one of our staff members.
Yes.
So we still require an emergency plan, proof of insurance,
I have all that.
liquor license,
Have that.
and then I would have to go through the actual application form to determine if there's any other outstanding documents.
Okay.
But right now, it's the application and the site plan that we have on file.
Okay.
So it sounds, John, like you just need to talk to Brandy and get all the ducks in a row, and I don't see that there would be any problem.
So just so you know, all the money is going to Stone Mills Fire and Rescue. There's, I may need to be corrected, I believe it's called a RIT kit bag. Is that correct? So it's a device, it's a big bag with all kinds of safety equipment, and it can literally save a fire person's life. They're short two, from what I understand, between all the fire halls. This bag costs $10,000. Our volunteer group is going to try and make enough money that we can buy one of those bags for the fire department. So that's the end goal.
Yeah, that's a great goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The last thing is I just have to hand out, but not to waste your time. This is just an update of what we've done. There's about $46,000 that we've raised so far. Just wanted to share it. I don't want to take up your time, but if everybody gets a copy later, is that okay?
Yeah, pass it
Or
around.
am I allowed to pass it out, or?
Sure, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much, Sean. Can I get a motion to receive John's deputation, please? Councillor Land, Councillor Woodcock, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, that's the end of deputation. Section 8 is items for consideration. And the first one is the zoning bylaw amendment Z0N 2025-0001. This is what we heard earlier in regard to changing the zone change from rural RE zone to Hamlet residential HR zone, site specific. Jason, did you have any further comment at this point on this this application?
Thanks, Reeve. I do not. I'm happy to answer any questions that any member of council may have thought of since our discussion.
So I'm just looking here for so the recommendation is that the report entitled zoning bylaw amendment application be received, and that council approve the application to rezone the subject property, and that bylaw 2025 to amend zoning bylaw number 2014-744, which is our zoning bylaw, zone change from rural RU zone to site-specific Hamlet residential zone, change from RU zone to Hamlet residential HR, and zone change from rural RU to site-specific Hamlet residential be enacted and passed, and the Reeve clerk be authorized to sign and seal. Does anyone want to make that motion? Councillor Land, second by Councillor McDonald. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 8.2 is proposed road allowance closure. No, my computer just argued with me. Okay. The report entitled Proposed Road Allowance Closure of 4 Peel Street be received, and that council direct staff to proceed in stopping up, closing, and conveying the portion of the unopened, unmaintained municipal road allowance identified as Part 3 on Plan of Survey 29R-8163. The report entitled, the recommendation is that be received, and council direct staff to proceed in stopping up, closing, and conveying the portion of the unopened, unmaintained road allowance identified as Part 3 on Plan of Survey 29R8163. Did you want to comment on this one, Jason?
Thank you, Reeve. I can. Some of you may also see some familiarity with this application as well. March 3rd, 2025, it was before you for the purposes of enacting an encroachment agreement on this Part 3 on Plan 29 R8163. Since that time, the property has changed hands with respect to ownership, and the current owner is requesting to the township to stop up and close that portion, Part 3 on the plan, and provide or move that over into private ownership as opposed to simply being subject to an encroachment agreement in perpetuity. Of course, as you know, there are 2 existing sheds on the property, Part 3, you can see them on the sketch. And they, in the owner's opinion, are very important to the functionality of the site. There's also a sense of pride in ownership with respect to the new owner on the property and instilling the heritage values of the property. In their opinion, the sheds require the same level of upkeep and want to get the same love, if you will, that the house is getting. And there's a concern that if they be maintained in township ownership and only subject to an encroachment agreement, that may not always be the case, as it may not be intact with the property as a whole. So by changing and conveying this portion of land, it essentially moves the sheds into the ownership of the house, and it stays as one uniform, consistent development. We as a municipality, Deputy Reeve Davison will recall, had passed a bylaw with respect to conveying land and municipal road allowances and associating a fee. The owner is aware of that bylaw. We've had multiple meetings, and they are cognizant of the costs associated with this. The owner is cognizant of the fact that there's costs to be borne by lawyers, not surveyors in this case, given the fact that it was surveyed, and cost to purchase the land from the municipality. There's no objection or concern with them advancing through that, should council be so inclined to convey this property to them through this stopping up and closing process. I'm happy to answer any questions, Reeve.
Questions from council? So there was a request, as is mentioned in your report some years ago, and there was objections to closing that up. Council at the time agreed with those objections, or for whatever reason did not want it to stop up. Has the situation changed, regardless of what the reasoning was of council at that time, or is basically the situation is the same? And was the concern at that time valid in your opinion?
Great question, Reeve Wise. I apologize for not providing that in part of my overview. From what I understand through the minutes that Clerk Teeple and I were able to uncover, the concern was related to decreasing property value as well as the potential of future development in that area. I've consulted with our public works manager on this, and the topography of that area or that road allowance is fairly significant insofar that, in his opinion, there wouldn't be a road that would come straight through from Mill Street north and open that road allowance as a whole. So I don't see it from a planning point of view devaluing property by allowing for any backlot development, if you will. There are properties northeast of this property that could get access via the road allowance that front onto the river. And there's an ability to come across and then south on the road allowance before you would ever hit this section, Part 3 on this plan, 8163. So in our assessment as staff level, we don't see it as being a concern in terms of devaluing. And I say that from the purposes of a township looking at increasing its tax base on developability of lots, particularly waterfront lots. So I don't think that's an issue. The other thing to keep in note of is Part 4, which is immediately east of Part 3, is proposed to be maintained in our ownership. So should we, as a corporation, wish to run utility or servicing, hydro, for example, any of that sort north from Mill Street, as opposed to having to loop around for an increased cost, we'll always have that ability, in the fact, assuming the fact it can sit on a 6.5 meter right-of-way width as opposed to a conventional 13. So I don't think, in short, that the concerns of 2002 are necessarily as true in today's landscape, if you will, as they might have been.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Fenwick?
These two sheds in particular, I'm certainly not going to be familiar with them, but because they are on technically, well, not technically, they are on township property, I would assume that any activities that take place in those sheds would be direct liability for us. And if we were to part with part 3, then we would reduce that liability, remove it completely, actually. Is that true?
Through you, Reeve Wise, you're exactly right, Councillor Fenwick. The only thing I'll point out, I don't believe there was ever an agreement on title recognizing the fact that those accessory structures were on township property. From a liability perspective, we're at least better positioned now that we have an encroachment agreement on file that recognizes the fact that private property owner utilizes a portion of our property, municipal property, for storage of goods and items. And there was actually concern when we were authoring that agreement with respect to the storage of like flammable gases, diesel, oils, that kind of thing. From a private property owner's perspective, as you can appreciate, there's a desire to keep those things in the shed for lawnmowers, et cetera. And from a property owner's point of view, from a corporation's liability perspective, there's a concern with, of course, spills and contamination of municipally owned properties. So we tried to limit that through language incorporated in an encroachment agreement that's now subject to this property and registered on title. But to your ultimate point, yes, there's greater liability, even the fact that we do have those clauses registered on title in the sense that we still own it at this time.
I should make this official. The move was by Councillor Fenwick, seconded by Deputy Reeve Davison. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Jason. So that brings us to 8.3, which is a response to an inquiry regarding the potential of installation of stairs at the Colebrook Conservation Area, which came to us some time ago from a resident. The recommended motion is that Council receive this report in response to inquiry regarding potential installation of stairs at Colebrook Conservation Area for information. And Chief Building Official Detler, you want to address this issue for us, please?
Yes, through your worship, I just want to apologize for it being such a long period of time between when this resolution of council to bring a report back was made and when I'm actually here with the report. You know, through recent a review by Clerk Teeple, we've been kind of going over maybe resolutions like this which were missed. And so that is what led to me to be here today with this report. Yeah, so kind of looking back through the email chains that I had at that time and reporting back, I've actually spoke to Quinte Conservation about this issue of swimming at that park. I mean, the park water is not tested at that point in time. It's not really recognized as an official swimming area in Stone Mills Township. I understand that there are dilapidated sort of remnants of some sort of stone steps there, and that, you know, there has been swimming going on at the Colebrook Park probably for generations. And if you go by today, despite the fact there's a sign saying don't jump off the bridge, you might see people jumping off the bridge. And such is the case. In my conversations with Quinte, they have very little appetite because of public safety concerns to actually create more swimming opportunities, or to, I guess, more legitimize, you know, the people that do, you know, swim there now and again. And just in talking to the, staff at the staff level, Stone Mill staff, there's been events in the township regarding fatalities at dams in the past decades, and there isn't a lot of appetite at the staff level to really move the needle in terms of effect change to better facilitate swimming at that location. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Jake. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Land.
Not sure if you got my late text today, Jake. So in the report, it did mention something about the representative from the Quinte Conservation Authority said that their staff could research the feasibility of installing a safety boom upstream of the dam, should the township so desire. So just wondering if you'd add a little.
Through your revise, the boom that they would be talking about would be similar to the boom that's at Second Lake. If anybody has been to Second Lake, there's this kind of long strand with kind of huge buoys that kind of, and they're reflective so that, it is a safety layer, around that dam. And I guess what QRCA staff member Catherine Sinclair was saying in that comment was that if you were ever to have swimming there, you would have to have a boom similar to that, placed at that dam. I'm not really sure if that would really stop, kids. I mean, I'm not a swim safety expert myself, but as I said, I don't think there was a huge appetite that I received from QRCA in regards to actually building stairs and to promoting swimming at that location. So, sorry if that doesn't answer your question, Councillor Land.
Okay, so this appears to be just a situation where the resident, Mickey Absol, I guess he was concerned that people were using that place where there were formerly stairs to get access to the water. It's slippery, there might be rubble there, but QCA doesn't want to promote swimming, so there's two safety issues. One is people are using a relatively unsafe sort of access point, but there's also the safety issue of people swimming right in front of a dam, and if you put stairs in, it's like you're promoting it. That's the rock and hard place. So unless council is willing to make a request of Quinte that we formally recognize, as has been the reality for generations, that this is a favorite swimming area in the township, unless we formally recognize that and request a boom, safety signs, and so on and so forth, that we would rather just let this rest. That's kind of what I'm sensing. Does anyone have any comment or recommendation in response to this report that Jake has brought to us? Councillor Fenwick.
I'm not sure, and Jake, you may not have the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. I know that those booms are like great big pool noodles, essentially. I know they're extremely pricey for what they are, especially. And I don't know how that affects us. Is it something that the QRCA would install, but then we would get the bill? Who gets to pay for it, and what ratepayer does it fall on? One of those things where I was surprised when I was informed one time of what they are, what the cost of them is, and I'm just not sure where that would land, should we go that direction.
Yeah, I never pursued negotiations to install such a thing. I'm not really sure that Quinte at the higher level would actually want those things installed in that location. I'm not really sure if it's a great idea, but yeah, certainly I never really actually went down long discussions about installing this boom on that dam, which to me is a lot different than the dam at Second Lake. But.
Okay, what's your wishes here? Move to receive, and do we make some report back to Mr. Abso, who made this request, and we duly made a motion that we follow up on it? So would that be part of your motion? So Deputy Reeve Davison moves receipt, and that we inform Mr. Absol that no action is to be taken. That would be essentially your motion, Doug? Seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Jake. Moving on, 8.4 is a bylaw to appoint building inspectors from Greater Napanee. The recommended motion is that a bylaw to appoint building inspectors from Greater Napanee be enacted and passed, and the Reeve and Clerk be authorized to sign and seal. I have failed to do this. Can I get a motion to put this on the floor, please? Councillor McDonald and Councillor Milligan. Jake. There's no staff report with this, so just a little explanation would be of benefit to the people in attendance.
Yes, for those who don't know, we are short one staff member in the Stone Mills Building Department who has moved on to South Frontenac Building Department. And as part of that, I just want to actually thank her, if she's watching, for her. I mean, she was a great addition to our township while she was here. Kathleen Pulfer, yeah, Building Inspector Kathleen Pulfer. And yeah, and this bylaw update is part of the fact that we may be leaning on Napanee for me being on holidays or sick time, you know, given that I'm right now the only building inspector left in Stone Mills Township. So just wanted to update our bylaw with all of Napanee's inspectors, just because they might be doing more work here to help me. So there's that explanation.
Thanks, Jake. So the three names at the end, Corey Seaton, Brent Kelly, and John Ray, are the individuals that could be called upon to fill in for us. Any questions for Jake on this one? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Jake. And 8.5, further to Martha Embry's deputation, is the Stoneleigh Steps Art Fest special event permit application. And the recommendation is the council receive the report on that application for information, and that council authorize staff to issue a letter of approval for the Art Fest, provided that the applicant completes outstanding permit application requirements, and that council approves the request to reimburse the insurance cost for the event up to the amount of $300, and that staff be directed to coordinate with Ms. Embry and deliver township picnic tables and garbage cans for use at the event, with the cost of the garbage bags charged to the council donation budget line. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Lalande and Councillor Woodcock. Clerk Teeple, did you wish to add anything to your report?
Thank you, Reeve Wise. Through you, Ms. Embry has provided her certificate of insurance, and we have the invoice here for the insurance cost, which is $245.03.
Thank you. Any discussion or any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 8.6 is Chief Administrative Officer Performance Appraisal Policy Update. The recommendation is that council provide direction on the following options for updating the CAO performance appraisal process. Indicate who will coordinate the authorship of the CAO performance review, and determine whether the updated policy should include guidance to engage external support to collect feedback and author performance reviews to address confidentiality and conflict of interest concerns. And the recommendation is that council provide that direction, indicate who will coordinate the authorship of the performance review, and determine whether the updated policy should include guidance to engage external support to collect feedback and author performance reviews to address confidentiality and conflict of interest concerns. Since we don't actually have a decision in that recommendation, can we just leave the mover and seconder till the end? Jason, if you're still with us, did you want to add anything to the report for discussion purposes at this time?
Thank you, Reeve Wise. Yeah, in efforts to update the policies in this area at the request of council, and with our limited resources as far as internal support from an HR department, it was prudent to just come back to council and ask the question to clarify the wishes of council on how they envision the process of formulating the performance review process, authoring it, and then delivering it. And we do see in other organizations where external resources can be used. It's not necessarily a specific recommendation coming forward that should be the recommendation, but I wanted to provide some options and the context around those options to council so that we can get that direction and incorporating it in what the policy will be around my performance appraisal process.
Thanks, Jason.
I'd be happy to answer any questions about that.
Okay, thank you. So just for the benefit of those in attendance who may be interested, we don't have a policy that addresses our current situation. The existing personnel policy refers to the position of CAO/clerk. We have divided those two positions, so that existing policy no longer applies. So areas for policy update include the fact of that separate CAO and clerk position. The current policy refers to our personnel committee. We used to have one, we no longer do, so there's no active personnel committee, and there's no alternative body designated, and authority to coordinate and oversee the process is undefined. Furthermore, administrative coordination and authorship gap. Who coordinates the evaluation process, the performance evaluation process? Who authors that review? What are the administrative supports requirements for that review? What documentation and record-keeping responsibilities are there? And fourth, confidentiality and conflict of interest provisions. Staff participating could be evaluating their direct supervisor. Confidentiality and privacy concerns arise. Questions about objectivity and independence arise. And potential workplace relationship impacts could occur. So the options presented for council's consideration, what would be option A, internal coordination. A designated council member or reeve coordinates the process of CAO performance review. Internal staff provide administrative support in collecting and authoring. This would have a minimal financial impact, but confidentiality issues could exist with internal staff involvement and possible other staff issues as well. Option B would be hiring it out, contracting, an external support service. The external party would collect feedback and author the report. The benefits obviously maintain confidentiality, eliminate conflict, and provide expertise. And option 3 would be a hybrid approach of those two, with council oversight using external administrative support. An external consultant handles confidential aspects. Council maintains control over the process and criteria. And the budgetary implications are with total internal, there's almost no cost. With total external, could be a couple $1,000 or more. Procurement process costs as well. And then a hybrid approach would fall somewhere in between. So that's something that we have to consider and discuss. Does anyone on council have any comments, thoughts, or questions at this point? Yes, Deputy Reeve Davison.
Yeah, I've been reviewing it and trying to think of the issues that are involved with it, and I'm looking at option C as whether we call it the Committee of Council or we call it the Personnel Committee. Really immaterial to me, but I think option C is possibly the right approach. I see option A as having a lot of issues to it. So.
That's your preference?
That's my preference.
Councillor Fenwick.
I agree with Doug. Same thing. I've been looking at this in depth, and at the end of the day, sometimes it's hard to read the label of the jar that you're inside. So it's really beneficial if you have a little bit of outside input, and this is a nice option, so I do agree with Doug.
Anyone else? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
I agree as well. Option C, the hybrid approach. Council being involved with paid consultants. Yes.
Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Milligan.
Nothing really more to add, except that that's the one I agree with as well.
So what sort of, yes, Councillor Lalonde, sorry.
Just one more quick statement. Yeah, I agree with C. Just wanted to say to CEO White that this was a really good document. It certainly highlighted all of the changes that were required, gave us 3 options to look at, put price tags on them. Thank you very much. Makes our job easy.
Thanks, Councillor Lalonde. Anything further? So in regards to a motion then, Brandy, just that council receives the report and recommends proceeding with council's, or with option C. Is there anything more in terms of detail that you require in that motion?
So I've drafted up a motion here that council receive the report and option C be selected as the preferred option outlined in the staff report, and staff be directed to report back to council outlining this new policy.
So that would include suggestions in terms of possible consultants and so on. So to be a full report on the implications and ways forward under option C. Does someone want to make that motion then? Councillor Woodcock and Councillor Milligan, any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Very good, thank you. Which brings us to the end of items for consideration. Oh, sorry, did I miss one?
8.7, the addition to appoint a deputy clerk.
Oh, yes, that's kind of important. I forgot we added that to the agenda and I didn't note it. Yes, so this, because Jason Sands is leaving us and part of his responsibilities were as deputy clerk, we need to recognize that fact, and we need a motion to appoint a deputy clerk. And are we going to name the proposed deputy clerk, which would be our CAO, Jason White? Any discussion around that requirement? Could I get a motion to appoint Jason White as deputy clerk? Deputy Reeve Davison and Councillor Milligan, any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Brandy. You got a new job, Jason. So this brings us to our consent agenda. Is there anything in the consent agenda that anyone wants to pull out for a separate discussion? I do want to pull out 9.3 Bill 17. Anyone else? Do you want to approve the balance of the consent agenda at this point? Then, Brandy, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Councillor Woodcock, Councillor Milligan, all in favor? That's carried. So, Bill 17, this is one of a number of bills which are being proposed as acts in the legislature. Bill 17 is a detailed Planning Act amendment bill with many proposed amendments to things like development charges, increasing powers to ministers to overrule municipalities. It's quite detailed, and I'm sure it's causing some interest, if not concern, among municipalities. And while you're still employed here, Mr. Sands, I wonder if anything, I'm sure you've gone over this, if anything jumps out at you as of concern or of interest and benefit to a municipality such as ours. And it's just kind of whatever you feel like talking about on Bill 17. I can't get my head around its implications myself.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Reeve Wise. The province does not let up on their naming either. Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter Act. Yeah, it continues essentially on the municipal government level in trying to streamline the development approvals. Yeah, there's lots. I don't know, I mean, the one that jumps out to me from a Planning Act point of view that has implications directly in Stone Mills is the as of right minor variance permissions. Those are fairly substantial.
Give us some examples of what that could look like.
Yeah. So first of all, as a professional planner, my biggest concern about that is they're targeting specifically the number. So a minor variance that's within deviance of 10% is automatically considered approved, is essentially what they're saying. So if you have and you're gonna put me on the spot with my math, but you got a water setback of 30 meters from the water, and you're trying to vary that within 10%, down to 27 meters, you basically rewrote your bylaw because you're allowed to now build at 27 meters from the lake instead of 30. Tonight's application for reducing a frontage requirement would not be approved automatically because it's greater than the 10%, for example. So that's a fairly big amendment in the sense that there's more tests to a minor variance, and this is what's confusing to me as a planner. There's more tests to a variance than just the number. You have 4 tests, right? Compliance with or general adherence to your official plan, intent to your zoning bylaw, is it minor in nature and is an appropriate and desirable development? All of that is just thrown out because now we're just saying what's the number, and if it's within 10%, it's fine. So that's very concerning from a planning point of view.
So just to clarify on that point, the way you phrased it was basically all our setbacks have just now been reduced by 10%, among other things. Sizes for Jake's department in terms of deck size, whatever it is. Now if someone wants to, they can just cut 10% off distances, separations, sizes of structures and so on. It essentially changes our bylaws.
Yeah, it's very, that's my literal reading of the draft legislation. Of course, there's not been clarity given yet as to how that would come to be. Does that mean that you have an automatic transition clause in your zoning bylaw that's at the start of the zoning bylaw that says, doesn't matter what it says, 10% of whatever's in there is, right. Or do you have to navigate a staff delegated approval process as opposed to a committee of adjustment approval process and save statutory timelines? We don't know. But to your point, Reeve, that's my literal reading of it, yes. The other big comment from a planning, and I've sort of focused on the Planning Act pieces because I'm a planner, is the section that really limits deeming applications complete. And council will recall a couple of years ago, again, I think it was Bill 109 or Bill 23, one of the two, that said pre-consultation meetings are not required for an applicant. So you can come in and apply for a zoning amendment. You don't have to actually talk to staff, you can just apply. And it used to be that you could force people through a zoning or a pre-consultation meeting. So a lot of municipalities got their backs up because they said, well, if you don't have to talk to municipal staff before you apply for the amendment or the change, and you just submit a loose leaf piece of paper, we are going to make it a bit more challenging to get through the approval process because we're going to have a lot of back and forth. So then the province changed the rules to say you got to give the money back if you don't get it through the approval process fast enough. So then we had even more challenges with that. So what the province is doing now, in my reading of this, is they're saying if you get an application that's submitted by a qualified professional or a qualified person, I think they call it, you have to accept it. That's it. You don't. The peer review world of hydro Gs, that's very common for Stone Mills. Again, the literal interpretation on Bill reading 1, I know there's 2 more to go, is that doesn't exist anymore. That you're going to take that as a complete application and the author of that report is going to be the one that has to defend it, and you don't have that review process. So again, trying to streamline the development approvals to get in the ground quicker. They're also, the province is proposing to actually nix the ability to ask for some application or some studies. So urban design study, lighting studies, wind studies, sun shadow studies, not overly important in Stone Mills. We don't see them that often. But the fact that the province is stepping in and saying what studies you can ask for and what you can't ask for, you can appreciate a sun shadow study when you're walking downtown in a big city with solar gain, has a pretty significant impact on applications. So I worry as to where that's going, because this is reading 1. What studies can you ask for ultimately, and which studies can you not, is going to be something to keep an eye on moving forward. The Development Charge Act is also being proposed to be amended. If this was 2 years ago, we wouldn't care, of course. We care now. And we don't have a good answer as to exactly what's happening other than what's written in the legislation. The biggest thing that I want to point out at this time is that applicants have the ability to not pay for a DC at time of permit issuance. That's a pretty big change in the sense that we like to be paid before we issue permit in that sense, and we like to collect our fees when the bylaw asks. So if now you can wait to occupancy, you could have that stage where, you know, and Jake can speak to this much better than I, but you know, you don't finish all the stair rails on your railing, on your deck, and maybe you don't get occupancy for 8 years, 9 years after you actually build your house. So you don't actually pay your DC, your development charge, to the municipality for 8 or 9 years into your build or your new house. So there's, from a tracking point of view, it's going to be challenging. From a implementation point of view, it's going to be challenging. Somebody might sell the house in the meantime. Are you now chasing the old owner, the new owner, or the developer? Where's that going to go? In a small municipality, you might be able to keep track of it, but it's still not, I see some concerns with it. And from a building code act, Reeve, what I would really think summarized by saying is they're really trying to go with the standardized approach. They're trying to go to a national building code approach in my mind. Again, Jake's better to speak to it than I, but having all different codes across the province, or sorry, across the country, poses challenges on harmonizing and efficiencies. So getting into one code makes sense from that point of view. The challenge with it is they've also been explicit to say that a municipality may not impose a higher standard than the code, which on the face of it might not sound that concerning. But if you have maybe a strategic direction of council, or you have a vision that you want to be a sustainable municipality and you want to implement some green standards, green energy standards, or higher insulation values for different types of housing, you can't do that. It has to be to the extent of the code. So no longer does a municipality have the ability to sway requirements from a developer to that degree. Those are, again, very quick and high level, but there's the onslaught of change continues, I guess I'll say. And there's lots of publications out currently. This first reading was May 12th, so a couple weeks ago. There's 2 more readings to go. We'll see what changes arise. But there are definitely changes, even though many of them are, you know, transit-oriented development or transit-oriented communities and trying to spur larger, dense developments in larger cities. Most of them are that directed. There are still changes at our level in rural Ontario that have impacts, not only on act changes, but on staffing demands and staffing changes on rollout. So it's something to be cognizant of.
So, and I won't keep you here all night, Jason. Just the one item where if a professional, an accredited professional supports a development application, that opinion cannot be challenged in essence. So if someone comes to us wanting to do some sort of development on property and they have hired a hydrogeologist, that doesn't get peer reviewed now if this legislation goes through. That's essentially what it's saying. And that's very concerning to me. That means the person you're paying is the one that is going to have, as far as the township goes, the final technical say on this application. And I would just take you back to the Warner Pasture, as it was called then, subdivision application. We had an application for 48 or 49 lots on fractured limestone with a hydro-G study to support it. There was local objection, and fortunately articulate local objection with records of how much their wells went up and down when it rained to show how much underground water movement there was. And council was concerned. Doug will remember this. This is, I don't know how long ago, Doug. My memory is hazy. But we hired our own hydrogeologist who differed with the hydrogeological support for that application, differed to the point where we halved the number of lots that we would approve. And I'm glad we had that opportunity. What this proposed legislation is saying that we would have had to accept that initial hydro-G recommendation and just gone ahead with that subdivision on that recommendation. So can you envision problems of that kind, Jason, with development applications?
Yeah, through you, Reeve, absolutely. In short, I just want to read the language because that's my interpretation of it. The language says, if information supporting an application is prepared by a person authorized to practice a prescribed profession, it is deemed to meet applicable requirements. I take that to mean if a qualified hydrogeologist prepared that study, I, as an approval board body, can't disagree or question or peer review that prescribed profession because they are a person authorized to practice. So to your point, yeah, I have concern from that from an MDS point of view, from a minimum distance separation point of view. You know, there's a lot of different ways to skew the numbers, and rightfully or wrongfully, right? Whichever way you want to. I mean, there's concern tonight about the time of year that it was, the time of year the study was taken, and we had a professional outside of our organization confirm that that was appropriately done, that the study that was plus or minus 75-page report was appropriate and it met all the requirements of the ministry. We don't have that ability if I'm reading that statement correctly. The only thing I want to back up and mention is the as-of-right zoning that I talked about, Reeve-wise. It does state that it would apply to urban lands. So my example of a waterfront lot might not be an urban land. Again, it's not defined yet. We don't know what that is. Does that apply to rural settlement areas and not rural areas? I don't know. If you have a waterfront lot, for example, in Camden East on the river, but it's in the hamlet, maybe that's considered urban land in the purposes of Stone Mills context, so that could apply. It's a bit unknown at this time, but yeah, there are pretty significant changes yet again.
And there's still a comment period?
That's correct. I don't have it in front of me. I know first reading is through, but there are two to go, and I believe opportunity still exists.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Lalane.
So when's your last day? So what I would like to suggest is that if you have time to make a short list of your most immediate rural Stone Mills Township homegrown concerns, that we draft something and send it to our MPP, Rick Brise, for assist him with the second reading.
So are you making that a motion?
I guess I am, yes.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Fenwick. Then let me ask Mr. Sands, do you have time to do such a thing at this point? It may not be fair to impose this on Jason.
We'll see. We'll see what we can do.
All in favor? A lot, Jason. I really appreciate your going through that. Yeah. So that brings us to, we did consent agenda items. Any notice of motion or direct motion from council? None. Any announcements by council? Anything you wish to highlight? Councillor Milligan.
When I decided on the weekend to make this announcement, I didn't realize Mr. and Mrs. Neisman would be here. So I was just going to congratulate them on their group, the Stone Mills Community Charity Events, in raising almost $50,000 in our community since the end of 2023. And I'm not in their group officially, but I volunteer because their events have been at the Legion, and I'm vice president of the Legion. So it's been such a pleasure to work with them. And if you look through the list that he handed out, I think it's fair to say lives have literally been changed by some of these events. And I would encourage anyone watching, listening, anyone in the audience, council, if you have a few hours to volunteer sometime at an event, I think you will love it. And I just wanted to congratulate them.
Yes, and let me add my congratulations as well. It's so impressive what you've been doing out there. I'm glad you finally found a place where you can do these things and it's working. That's really great. Did someone else have an announcement? I thought I saw another hand. No? That's it? Then at this point, I have to ask people to leave because we have a closed meeting pursuant to Section 239 of Municipal Act. The reason for the closed meeting is to approve closed session minutes and to deal with personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees. So, thank you for attending, and I need a motion to go into closed meeting. Deputy Davidson, Councillor Milligan, all in favor? That's carried. We'll take a 5-minute break. So. Okay, council has just emerged from a closed session meeting. There's nothing to bring forward from that closed session meeting, Randy, so you don't need any motion other?
Just a motion to rise out of closed.
Okay, so a motion to rise out of closed from Sherry and seconded by Councillor Land. All in favor? That's carried. So you just need a confirmation by law. Can I get a mover for a confirmation by law? Councillor Milligan, Councillor McDonald, all in favor? That's carried. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? From Councillor Woodcock and Councillor Milligan, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much.